The Grand Horizon Hotel stood tall and proud in the heart of downtown Chicago, its glass facade shimmering under the pale light of the setting sun. It was a place where luxury met comfort, where guests were treated like royalty, and where every detail mattered. Lisa Monroe sat behind the reception desk on the ground floor, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the keyboard as she processed check-ins and answered calls. At 28, Lisa was known for her cheerful demeanor and progressive outlook. She believed in fairness, equality, and doing what was right, even if it meant bending a few rules along the way. It was late afternoon, and the lobby buzzed with activity. Business travelers dragged their suitcases across the polished marble floors while tourists snapped photos of the grand chandelier hanging above them. Lisa glanced at the clock on the wall. Her shift was almost over, but she still had a few hours to go. Just as she began organizing some papers, the phone beside her rang. She picked it up quickly, her voice warm and professional. "Good evening. Thank you for calling the Grand Horizon Hotel. This is Lisa speaking. How may I assist you?" On the other end of the line was a man with a clipped tone. "Hello, this is Stephen, personal assistant to Mr. Robert De Niro. We need a room for tonight. Immediate. Check-in." "Is that possible?" Lisa's eyes widened. Robert De Niro? The famous actor? She felt a surge of excitement rush through her veins. Hosting someone so well-known would be a huge deal for the hotel and for her career. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she replied, "Of course. Let me check our availability." She tapped furiously on her computer, scanning the list of available rooms. Unfortunately, the hotel was nearly fully booked. A large conference was taking place in the city, and most of the rooms had been reserved weeks in advance. But then she spotted one, a standard king suite on the 8th floor. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. "We do have one room available," Lisa said into the phone, trying to sound calm despite her racing heart. "Would that work for Mr. De Niro?" There was a pause on the other end before Stephen responded. "Yes, that will suffice. Please hold it for us. We'll be there within the hour." Lisa nodded even though he couldn't see her. "Absolutely, sir. I'll make sure everything is ready for his arrival." As soon as she hung up, Lisa leaned back in her chair, letting out a squeal of excitement. This was going to be amazing. She imagined all the attention the hotel would get when word spread that Robert De Niro was staying there. Maybe she'd even get to meet him herself. But first, she needed to prepare. She called housekeeping to ensure the room was spotless and notified the concierge team to keep an eye out for his entourage. While Lisa was busy making arrangements, Greg Leavitt stepped out of a taxi outside the hotel. He was a middle-aged man with thinning hair and glasses perched on his nose. His suit jacket was slightly wrinkled from the long flight, and his leather briefcase looked worn from years of use. Greg worked as an accountant for a mid-sized firm in New York, and this trip to Chicago was supposed to be a rare break from his usual routine. For once, his wife and kids weren't tagging along, giving him the chance to enjoy some peace and quiet. Greg entered the lobby, dragging his suitcase. Behind him, he approached the reception desk, his face tired but hopeful. Seeing Lisa, he offered a small smile. "Hi, I'm Greg Leavitt. I have a reservation here." Lisa turned to greet him, her mind still buzzing with thoughts of De Niro. She typed his name into the system, expecting to find his booking without issue, but instead of pulling up his reservation, the screen flashed an error message. Confused, she frowned and tried again. Still nothing. "I'm sorry, Mr. Leavitt," she said apologetically. "It seems your reservation isn't showing up in our system. Could you confirm the dates and your confirmation number?" Greg dug into his pocket for the email confirmation he'd printed earlier. Handing it to Lisa, he explained, "I booked this room 3 weeks ago. Everything should be in order." Lisa scanned the document and realized the problem. In her haste to secure a room for De Niro, she had accidentally canceled Greg's reservation. Panic bubbled inside her chest. How could she have made such a mistake? And now, with no other rooms available, what was she supposed to do? Lisa stammered, her cheeks flushing red. "It appears there's been an error, Mr. Leavitt. Your room isn't available anymore." Greg blinked, clearly taken aback. "What do you mean it's not available? I've traveled all the way from New York for this. Do you have any other options?" Lisa hesitated, glancing nervously toward the elevators. She knew she couldn't admit the truth. Not yet. Instead, she forced a reassuring smile. "Let me speak with my manager. We'll figure something out for you." Greg sighed, deeply pinching the bridge of his nose. He didn't want to cause a scene, but he was exhausted and frustrated. All he wanted was a bed to sleep in after a grueling day of travel. As Lisa excused herself to call her supervisor, Greg wandered over to one of the plush chairs in the lobby, sinking into it with a groan. Back at the desk, Lisa dialed Karen Monroe's number, praying she'd answer. Karen was the co-owner of the hotel and Lisa's direct boss. If anyone could fix this mess, it was her. After several rings, Karen finally picked up. "Karen, it's Lisa," she whispered urgently. "We have a situation. A guest named Greg Leavitt arrived, but his reservation is missing. And, well, I think I might have accidentally canceled it." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "You did what?" Karen hissed. "Do you know who he is? Or why he's here?" "No, I don't," Lisa admitted, feeling smaller by the second. "But I promise I'll fix it. Just please come down here, I need your help." Karen agreed to arrive shortly, but until then, Lisa was on her own. Returning to Greg, she plastered on another smile. "Mr. Leavitt, I apologize for the inconvenience. My manager is coming to resolve this personally. In the meantime, can I offer you a complimentary drink or snack?" Greg shook his head, too annoyed to accept anything. "Just tell me what's going on," he said firmly. "This kind of thing doesn't usually happen at hotels like this." Lisa swallowed hard, avoiding his gaze. Before she could respond, the doors swung open and a group of people walked in. Among them was Robert De Niro himself, flanked by his assistant and a couple of bodyguards. The lobby erupted into whispers as guests recognized the iconic actor. Cameras clicked, and phones were pulled out to capture the moment. Lisa scrambled to greet De Niro and escort him to his room, all while trying to keep Greg from noticing the commotion. But Greg noticed anyway. Watching from his chair, he pieced together what must have happened. His reservation had been canceled to accommodate someone more important, or at least someone more famous. Anger simmered beneath his calm exterior as he waited for Karen to show up. When Karen finally arrived, she took one look at Greg and immediately sensed the tension. With a practiced smile, she introduced herself and led him to a private corner of the lobby. "Mr. Leavitt, I understand there's been a misunderstanding regarding your reservation. Please allow me to make amends." Greg crossed his arms, his patience wearing thin. "A misunderstanding? That's one way to put it. I just want to know why my room isn't available." Karen glanced at Lisa, silently urging her to explain. But Lisa remained silent, too embarrassed to speak. Sensing the awkwardness, Karen decided to take charge. "We're very sorry for the oversight, Mr. Leavitt. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, we're currently at full capacity. However, we're exploring alternative solutions to ensure your stay is comfortable." Greg raised an eyebrow. "Alternative solutions? Like what? Sending me to another hotel?" Before Karen could reply, Lisa interjected nervously. "Actually, we might be able to upgrade you to a better room if one becomes available." Karen shot her a warning look, but Greg seemed intrigued. "And if it doesn't?" Karen sighed, realizing they were running out of options. "Then we'll cover your expenses elsewhere. Whatever it takes to make this right." Greg studied her for a moment, weighing his choices. Finally, he nodded. "Fine, but I expect regular updates until this is resolved." With that, Karen escorted Greg to a lounge area, promising to return shortly with news. Meanwhile, Lisa retreated to her desk, her mind spinning with guilt and anxiety. She had always prided herself on being fair and considerate, yet here she was caught in a web of her own mistakes. Little did she know this was only the beginning of a much bigger story, one that would test her resolve and change her perspective forever. Karen Monroe stood in the lobby of the Grand Horizon Hotel, her polished black heels clicking softly against the marble floor as she paced back and forth. She was a woman who exuded authority. Her perfectly tailored suit, sharp gaze, and calm demeanor made it clear that she was not someone to be trifled with. But beneath her composed exterior, Karen was deeply troubled. The situation with Greg Leavitt had escalated far beyond what she'd expected, and now she was left to clean up the mess. Lisa hovered nearby, her face pale and her hands trembling slightly. She watched as Karen spoke quietly with the hotel's assistant manager, giving instructions on how to handle the growing crowd of curious guests who had gathered after spotting Robert De Niro. The actor himself had already been whisked away to his suite, but the ripple effect of his arrival lingered. Cameras continued to flash and whispers filled the air. Lisa felt like everyone in the room could see the guilt written all over her face. "Lisa," Karen said sharply, snapping her attention back to the present. "I need you to focus. This is a delicate situation, and we can't afford any more mistakes." Lisa nodded quickly, her throat dry. "Yes, ma'am. I understand." Karen gave her a long, hard look before turning her attention back to Greg Leavitt, who was seated in one of the lounge chairs. He looked irritated, though he was trying to mask it by scrolling through his phone. Karen approached him cautiously, her tone warm but professional. "Mr. Leavitt, thank you for your patience," she began, sitting down across from him. "I want to assure you that we're doing everything we can to resolve this issue. Unfortunately, due to the high occupancy tonight, our options are limited. However, we've reached out to several partner hotels nearby, and they've agreed to accommodate you if needed." Greg glanced up from his phone, his expression unreadable. "That's good to hear," he said slowly. "But I'm curious. Why exactly is my reservation missing? Did something go wrong with the booking system?" Karen hesitated, glancing briefly at Lisa, who stood frozen a few feet away. She knew the truth would only make things worse, but lying outright wasn't an option either. "There was a clerical error," she admitted carefully. "It's being addressed as we speak, and steps are being taken to ensure it doesn't happen again." Greg raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "A clerical error? That seems odd, especially considering that Mr. De Niro just walked in and got a room without any issues." Karen stiffened, caught off guard by his observation. She hadn't anticipated him connecting the dots so quickly. "As I mentioned earlier, Mr. De Niro's team contacted us last minute," she explained, choosing her words carefully. "We did our best to accommodate him while minimizing disruption to other guests." Greg leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "So let me get this straight. My reservation was canceled to make room for someone more important. Is that what you're saying?" Karen opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She couldn't deny it, not without making things worse. Instead, she offered a placating smile. "Mr. Leavitt, please believe me when I say this is not about importance, it's about prioritizing urgent requests. We value every guest equally, and we're truly sorry for the inconvenience caused." Greg studied her for a moment, his frustration simmering just below the surface. Finally, he sighed and uncrossed his arms. "Look, I don't care about excuses. All I want is a solution, and some transparency. If you're honest with me, I'll be reasonable. But if I find out later that you've been hiding something, I won't hesitate to take my business elsewhere." Karen nodded solemnly. "Understood. And again, I apologize sincerely for the oversight." With that, she stood and returned to Lisa, pulling her aside for a private conversation. "We need to fix this immediately," Karen whispered urgently. "Who knows who this guy is or why? He's here? For all we know, he could be connected to someone influential, or worse, planning to leave a scathing review online." Lisa swallowed hard, her stomach churning. "What should I do?" Karen thought for a moment before replying. "Go back to the computer and double-check every available room. If there's even a remote possibility of finding space, take it. In the meantime, I'll call Richard." "Richard?" Lisa repeated, confused. "Why would you call him?" Karen gave her a pointed look. "Because he owns half of this hotel, Lisa, and because he might have connections or resources we don't. Trust me, this isn't something we can handle alone." Lisa nodded reluctantly and hurried back to the reception desk. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she searched for any openings, no matter how small. After several tense minutes, she finally found one, a junior executive suite on the 10th floor. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Just as Lisa was about to report her findings to Karen, the doors to the hotel swung open once more. A tall, broad-shouldered man strode in, his presence commanding immediate attention. He wore a dark gray suit and carried himself with an air of confidence that seemed almost magnetic. Lisa recognized him instantly. It was Richard Monroe, Karen's husband and co-owner of the Grand Horizon hotel chain. Richard scanned the lobby, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took in the chaotic scene. Guests were still milling around, whispering excitedly about Niro's arrival, while staff members scrambled to maintain order. Spotting Karen near the reception desk, he made his way over, his expression unreadable. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Karen stepped forward, relief washing over her face. "Richard, thank goodness you're here. We have a situation with a guest, Greg Leavitt. His reservation was accidentally canceled, and now he's understandably upset." Richard frowned, glancing toward the lounge area where Greg sat. "Leavitt? The name sounds familiar. Do we know who he is?" Karen shook her head. "Not yet, but based on his reaction, I think he might be more than just a regular traveler. Either way, we need to smooth things over before this blows up in our faces." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "Let's bring him into my office. We'll talk privately and figure out a solution." Karen agreed and motioned for Lisa to join them. Together, the three of them approached Greg, who looked up expectantly as they arrived. "Mr. Leavitt," Richard began, extending a hand. "I'm Richard Monroe, co-owner of the Grand Horizon Hotel. Please accept my sincerest apologies for the trouble you've experienced today. Would you mind joining us in my office so we can discuss how to make this right?" Greg hesitated for a moment, then stood and shook Richard's hand. "All right," he said simply, "but I hope you have a plan." The group moved to Richard's office on the 2nd floor, a spacious room with large windows overlooking the city. Once inside, Richard gestured for Greg to sit while Karen closed the door behind them. Lisa lingered near the entrance, unsure whether she should stay or leave. "Please have a seat," Richard said, addressing Lisa. "You're part of this too." Lisa obeyed, perching nervously on the edge of a chair. Richard turned his attention back to Greg, his tone earnest. "Mr. Leavitt, I can't begin to express how sorry we are for the mix-up. It's unacceptable and we're taking full responsibility. Before we propose a solution, is there anything specific you'd like us to address?" Greg leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Honestly, I'm tired and frustrated. I traveled all the way from New York for this trip and I didn't expect to deal with nonsense like this. All I want is a comfortable place to stay and assurance that this won't happen again." Richard nodded, his expression serious. "Fair enough. Here's what we'll do. We'll upgrade you to our junior executive suite on the 10th floor. It's quieter and offers a better view than the original room you booked. Additionally, we'll comp your meals during your stay and provide transportation, vouchers for any inconvenience caused." Greg considered the offer, his irritation easing slightly. "That sounds reasonable," he said after a pause. "But I have one condition." "And what's that?" Richard asked, raising an eyebrow. "I want to meet the person responsible for canceling my reservation," Greg replied evenly. "I think it's important to understand how these kinds of mistakes happen, and how to prevent them in the future." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Lisa. She felt her heart sink, her cheeks burning with shame. Slowly, she raised her hand. That would be me," she admitted softly. "I made the mistake, and I'm so sorry, Mr. Leavitt. I never intended for this to happen." Greg studied her for a moment, his gaze piercing. Then, to everyone's surprise, he smiled faintly. "Apology accepted," he said. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how you handle them afterward. And it looks like you're trying to make things right." Lisa blinked, startled by his unexpected kindness. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard clapped his hands together, breaking the tension. "Great. Now that we've cleared the air, let's move forward. Lisa, Please escort Mr. Leavitt to his new room and ensure everything is to his satisfaction. Lisa nodded eagerly, grateful for the chance to redeem herself. As she led Greg out of the office, Karen and Richard exchanged a glance. Well, that could have gone worse, Karen remarked, letting out a sigh of relief. Richard chuckled dryly. True, but we're not out of the woods yet. Something tells me Mr. Leavitt isn't just any ordinary guest. Karen frowned, intrigued. What do you mean? Richard shrugged. I recognize the name, I just can't place it yet, but I'll look into it tomorrow. For now, let's focus on damage control. The next morning, the Grand Horizon Hotel was quieter than usual. The conference attendees had dispersed to their meetings, and the chaos of the previous evening had faded into memory. Lisa arrived early for her shift, determined to start fresh. She brewed herself a cup of coffee in the staff break room, savoring the warmth as she mentally prepared for the day ahead. Despite Greg Leavitt's unexpected kindness the night before, she couldn't shake the weight of her mistake. Every time she thought about canceling his reservation, her stomach churned with guilt. As she walked through the lobby, she noticed Greg sitting at a table near the windows, sipping a cup of tea while reviewing documents on his laptop. He looked relaxed now, dressed casually in a sweater and slacks, his briefcase resting on the chair beside him. For a moment, Lisa debated whether to approach him or not. She wanted to thank him again for being understanding, but she didn't want to seem intrusive. Before she could decide, Greg glanced up and spotted her. Good morning, he said warmly, waving her over. Care to join me? Lisa hesitated, then nodded. Thank you, Mr. Leavitt. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for your patience last night. It meant a lot. Greg smiled faintly. It's fine, really. Mistakes happen. What matters is that they're fixed, and from what I've seen so far, this hotel knows how to take care of its guests. His words eased some of Lisa's anxiety, but she still felt uneasy. There was something about Greg that puzzled her. He wasn't behaving like an ordinary traveler who'd been inconvenienced. Instead, he seemed almost amused by the whole situation, as if he knew something no one else did. I hope your room is comfortable, Lisa said, trying to sound casual. If there's anything else you need, please let me know. It's perfect, Greg replied, closing his laptop. Though I must admit I'm curious about something. Do you often bump regular guests to make room for celebrities? Lisa froze, caught off guard by the question. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Greg chuckled softly, shaking his head. Don't worry, I'm not accusing you of anything. I just find it interesting how priorities can shift so quickly. Fame has a way of opening doors, doesn't it? Before Lisa could reply, Karen Monroe appeared, striding across the lobby with purpose. Her sharp heels clicked against the floor as she approached their table. Mr. Leavitt, good morning. I trust everything is to your liking. Greg stood politely, offering a handshake. Yes, thank you. Your team has been very accommodating. Karen smiled, though her expression remained guarded. I'm glad to hear that. If there's anything else we can do to enhance your stay, please don't hesitate to ask. Greg paused, studying her for a moment. Then, without warning, he said, Actually, there is one thing. I'd like to speak with you privately later today, if you have time, of course. Karen blinked, clearly surprised by the request. Of course, Mr. Leavitt. My schedule is flexible. Shall we meet in Richard's office after lunch? That works, Greg agreed. Around 2 o'clock? Perfect, Karen replied, nodding. I'll see you then. As Karen walked away, Lisa watched Greg closely, her curiosity piqued. What could he possibly want to discuss with Karen? And why did he seem so calm about the entire ordeal? Later that afternoon, Karen waited anxiously in Richard's office. She sat at the desk, tapping her pen against a notepad as she tried to anticipate what Greg might say. Richard leaned against the wall nearby, arms crossed, his expression thoughtful. What do you think he wants? Karen asked, glancing at her husband. Richard shrugged. Hard to say, but something tells me this isn't just about the reservation mix-up. Just then a knock sounded at the door. Greg entered, carrying his briefcase. He greeted them both with a polite smile and took a seat when invited. For a moment, No one spoke. The air in the room grew heavy with anticipation. "Thank you for meeting with me," Greg began, setting his briefcase on the desk. "I wanted to clarify a few things, not just about my stay here, but about potential opportunities for collaboration." Karen frowned, confused. "Collaboration? Could you elaborate?" Greg nodded, leaning forward slightly. "Let me explain. I work for a financial firm based in New York. We specialize in managing investments for high-net-worth individuals and corporations. One of our largest clients happens to be a major hospitality group, and they've expressed interest in expanding their portfolio." Karen's eyes widened as realization dawned. "You mean you're here representing them?" Greg smiled faintly. "Exactly. This trip was supposed to be a preliminary visit to evaluate properties in Chicago. Naturally, I plan to stay at the Grand Horizon Hotel. It's one of the finest establishments in the city. But when my reservation was canceled," he trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Richard cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "So what you're saying is this mix-up could have cost us more than just a guest. It could have jeopardized a significant business opportunity." Greg nodded. "That's correct. However, I'm willing to overlook the incident, provided we can reach an agreement that benefits both parties." Karen exchanged a glance with Richard, her mind racing. This revelation changed everything. If Greg's firm decided to partner with them, it could lead to lucrative deals and increased exposure for the hotel chain. On the other hand, failing to impress him now could result in lost revenue and damaged reputations. "What kind of agreement are you proposing?" Karen asked cautiously. Greg opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the desk. "Here's a summary of what my client is looking for. They're interested in acquiring stakes in hotels that align with their brand values, luxury, exclusivity, and exceptional service. In return, they offer substantial funding and resources to help those properties grow." Richard picked up the folder and skimmed through its contents, his brow furrowed in concentration. After a moment, he looked up at Greg. "This sounds promising, but why choose us specifically?" Greg leaned back in his chair, his tone matter-of-fact. "Because your hotel stands out. It's well managed, strategically located, and has a reputation for excellence. Plus, given recent events, I believe you understand the importance of going above and beyond for your guests." Karen flushed slightly at the subtle jab, but she forced a smile. "We appreciate your confidence in us, Mr. Leavitt. Rest assured, we'll review your proposal carefully and get back to you soon." Greg nodded, standing to leave. "Take your time. I'll be in town for another 2 days. Let me know if you need anything in the meantime." As he exited the office, Karen exhaled deeply, sinking into her chair. "Well, that was unexpected." Richard smirked, flipping through the folder again. "Unexpected, but potentially game-changing. If we play our cards right, this could be the biggest deal we've landed in years." Karen nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. "We'll need to present a strong case to his client. That means addressing any concerns they might have and ensuring incidents like last night never happen again." Richard raised an eyebrow. "Speaking of which, what exactly are you going to do about Lisa?" Karen sighed, rubbing her temples. "I don't know yet. She made a costly mistake, but she also showed initiative in trying to fix it. Maybe this is a wake-up call for her, and for all of us." Downstairs, Lisa was unaware of the conversation taking place. She continued her duties at the reception desk, occasionally glancing toward the elevators, wondering if Greg would reappear. When Karen finally emerged from the office and motioned for her to follow, Lisa felt a knot form in her stomach. "Lisa," Karen began, her tone serious, but not unkind. "We need to talk about what happened yesterday and what it means for the future." Lisa braced herself, expecting the worst. But instead of criticism, Karen outlined a plan. "Greg Leavitt represents a major opportunity for this hotel. His firm is considering investing in us, and we need to prove ourselves worthy of their trust. From now on, every decision we make needs to reflect professionalism and integrity." Lisa nodded, relief washing over her. "I understand, ma'am. I'll do whatever it takes to help." Karen gave her a small smile. "Good. because starting today you're officially promoted to assistant manager. Congratulations. Lisa stared at her, stunned. Wait, what? You heard me, Karen replied. You've shown resilience and resourcefulness under pressure. Those are qualities we value highly. But remember, this comes with responsibility. No more shortcuts or assumptions. You're part of leadership now. Tears welled up in Lisa's eyes as she accepted the news. Thank you, Karen, I won't let you down. As Karen walked away, Lisa took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to face it. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test her skills, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately transform her life forever. The days following Greg Leavitt's revelation moved quickly at the Grand Horizon Hotel. Lisa, now promoted to assistant manager, found herself busier than ever. Her new role came with added responsibilities, overseeing staff schedules, managing guest complaints, and ensuring that every detail of the hotel's operations ran smoothly. At first, she struggled to balance her workload, often staying late into the evening to catch up on tasks. But as the days passed, she began to adapt, learning how to prioritize and delegate effectively. Karen Monroe kept a close eye on Lisa, offering guidance whenever necessary. Though she had faith in Lisa's abilities, Karen knew that this was a critical time for the hotel. Greg's firm was still evaluating their proposal, and any misstep could jeopardize the deal. Every morning, Karen held a brief meeting with her team to discuss progress and address concerns. During one such meeting, she turned to Lisa with a thoughtful expression. Lisa, Karen began, I'd like you to personally assist Mr. Leavitt during his stay. Make sure he has everything he needs, and more. If there's anything we can do to make his experience memorable, don't hesitate to act. Lisa nodded, feeling both honored and nervous. Assisting Greg directly meant walking a fine line between professionalism and overstepping boundaries. She didn't want to come across as intrusive, but she also couldn't afford to seem indifferent. After the meeting, Lisa approached Greg in the lobby, where he was reviewing papers at a table near the windows. Good morning, Mr. Leavitt, she said warmly. Is there anything I can help you with today? Greg looked up and smiled faintly. Actually, yes. I'm planning to visit a few other hotels this afternoon as part of my research. Do you have recommendations for places worth seeing? Lisa hesitated for a moment, unsure whether recommending competitors was wise. But then she remembered Karen's instructions to go above and beyond. Of course, she replied confidently. There are 2 properties nearby that stand out. The Regency Plaza and the Lakeside Inn. Both are excellent examples of luxury accommodations. Would you like me to arrange transportation for you? That would be great, Greg said, nodding appreciatively. Thank you, Lisa. As Lisa organized a car service for Greg, she couldn't help but wonder why he was so interested in visiting rival hotels. Was he comparing them to the Grand Horizon? Or was there another reason behind his curiosity? Whatever it was, she decided to focus on what she could control, ensuring that Greg left no stone unturned in his evaluation. Later that day, Richard Monroe joined Karen in her office to discuss the proposal they were preparing for Greg's client. Spread across the desk were documents outlining financial projections, marketing strategies, and plans for expansion. Richard leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples as he scanned the materials. This is solid work, he admitted grudgingly. But do you think it's enough? His client isn't just looking for numbers, they're looking for vision. Karen nodded, her expression determined. I know. That's why I've been thinking about adding something extra, a unique selling point that sets us apart from the competition. Richard raised an eyebrow. Like what? What if we introduced a loyalty program specifically tailored to high-net-worth individuals? Karen suggested. Something exclusive with perks that cater to their lifestyle, private events, personalized concierge services, maybe even partnerships with luxury brands. Richard considered the idea, his lips curving into a small smile. Not bad. It shows initiative and creativity. Let's include it in the proposal. By the end of the week, the Monroes had finalized their presentation. They scheduled a meeting with Greg for Friday afternoon, hoping to impress him with their vision for the future. On the morning of the meeting, Lisa arrived early to prepare the conference room. She arranged refreshments on a side table, double-checked the projector setup, and ensured that copies of the proposal were neatly stacked for each attendee. When Greg arrived, accompanied by Karen and Richard, Lisa greeted him with a confident smile. "Everything is ready, Mr. Leavitt. Please let me know if you need anything during the meeting." Greg nodded approvingly. "Thank you, Lisa. You've been very helpful." As the meeting began, Karen took the lead, presenting the hotel's strengths and outlining their plans for growth. Richard followed with a detailed explanation of the proposed loyalty program, emphasizing its exclusivity and potential appeal to elite clientele. Throughout the presentation, Greg listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes or asking clarifying questions. When the session concluded, Greg leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "This is impressive," he said finally. "You've clearly put a lot of effort into this proposal. I'll share it with my client and let you know their decision within the next week." Karen and Richard exchanged relieved glances, grateful for the positive feedback. As Greg stood to leave, Karen extended her hand. "Thank you for considering us, Mr. Leavitt. We truly hope to earn your trust." Greg shook her hand firmly. "You already have. Now it's just a matter of sealing the deal." After Greg departed, Lisa lingered in the conference room, tidying up while reflecting on the meeting. For the first time since the reservation mix-up, she felt hopeful about the hotel's future. The Monroes' hard work, combined with her own efforts to assist Greg, seemed to be paying off. But as she returned to the lobby, she noticed something unusual. A group of men in suits standing near the reception desk speaking quietly among themselves. Curious, Lisa approached cautiously. One of the men turned to her, introducing himself as an executive from Greg's firm. "Ms. Monroe," he said politely, "we'd like to tour the property. Mr. Leavitt mentioned that this hotel might meet our client's standards." Lisa's heart skipped a beat. This was unexpected but exciting. She immediately contacted Karen, who arrived moments later to greet the executives. Together, they led the group on a guided tour, showcasing the hotel's finest features. The opulent suites, state-of-the-art conference facilities, and award-winning restaurant. Lisa stayed close by, answering questions and providing additional information whenever needed. As the tour progressed, Lisa noticed how impressed the executives seemed. They praised the hotel's design, cleanliness, and attentive staff. By the time they reached the rooftop terrace offering breathtaking views of the Chicago skyline, several of them were openly discussing the hotel's potential as an investment opportunity. "That concludes our tour," Karen announced, smiling warmly. "Thank you for taking the time to visit. We hope you'll consider the Grand Horizon Hotel as a partner in your client's portfolio." The lead executive nodded thoughtfully. "We'll be in touch soon with our decision. Thank you for your hospitality." Once the group departed, Lisa exhaled deeply, realizing she'd been holding her breath. Karen placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Well done, Lisa. You handled that beautifully." "Thank you," Lisa replied, her voice tinged with pride. "I just hope it's enough." That evening, after most of the guests had retired to their rooms, Lisa sat alone in the quiet lobby sipping a cup of tea. The day had been long but rewarding, and she allowed herself a moment to reflect. From the chaos of canceling Greg's reservation to assisting him and earning the trust of his firm, she had come a long way in a short amount of time. Her promotion to assistant manager was proof that hard work and determination could turn even the worst mistakes into opportunities. As she gazed out the window at the glittering cityscape, Lisa felt a renewed sense of purpose. The hotel and her career were on the brink of something extraordinary. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them head-on. Unbeknownst to Lisa, Karen and Richard were having a similar conversation in the privacy of their office. "Do you think we did enough?" Karen asked, voicing her lingering doubts. Richard smiled reassuringly. "We gave it our best shot. And if nothing else, we proved that this hotel has heart. Sometimes that's all it takes. Little did they know their efforts had already made a lasting impression, not just on Greg Leavitt, but on everyone involved. The stage was set for a new chapter in the Grand Horizon Hotel's history, one that promised growth, success, and transformation. All they had to do now was wait for the final verdict. The days following the executive's visit to the Grand Horizon Hotel felt like an eternity for Lisa. The anticipation hung heavy in the air, not just for her, but for the entire staff. Everyone knew that Greg Leavitt's firm could bring significant changes to the hotel, changes that could elevate its status and secure its future. Yet the waiting was agonizing. Lisa found herself constantly checking her phone, hoping for a call or email from Greg or his team. Each time the reception desk phone rang, her heart skipped a beat. Karen and Richard Monroe were no less anxious. They spent hours discussing contingency plans in case the deal fell through. Karen focused on improving guest satisfaction, implementing small but meaningful changes around the hotel. Fresh flowers appeared in every room, complimentary snacks were upgraded, and staff uniforms were replaced with sleeker designs. Meanwhile, Richard reached out to some of their most loyal clients, subtly hinting at upcoming developments without revealing too much. It was a delicate balance between optimism and caution. Lisa, now fully settled into her role as assistant manager, threw herself into her work. She became a familiar face to many guests, greeting them by name and remembering their preferences. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. Guests began leaving positive reviews online, praising the hotel's exceptional service. One review even mentioned Lisa specifically, calling her the heart of the Grand Horizon. When Karen showed it to her, Lisa blushed deeply, humbled by the compliment. Despite these successes, the uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone. Late one evening, as Lisa prepared to leave after a long shift, she noticed Karen still in her office, staring at her computer screen. Curious, Lisa knocked gently on the doorframe. "Still working?" she asked softly. Karen looked up, startled, then smiled wearily. "Just going over numbers," she admitted. "Trying to stay busy while we wait." Lisa stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "It'll be okay," she said, surprising herself with how confident she sounded. "We've done everything we can. If they don't see how amazing this place is, it's their loss." Karen chuckled softly. "You're right, of course, but it's hard not to overthink things when so much is at stake." Before Lisa could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, expecting yet another spam message. Instead, she saw an email notification from Greg Leavitt. Her breath caught in her throat. "It's from Mr. Leavitt," she whispered, her hands trembling slightly as she opened the email. Karen leaned forward eagerly. "What does it say?" Lisa scanned the message quickly, her eyes widening with each word. "They've made a decision," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Their client wants to move forward with us." Karen let out a gasp, her face lighting up with relief and joy. "Are you serious? This is incredible." Lisa nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "He says they're impressed with our vision and our commitment to excellence. They want to finalize the details next week." Without thinking, Karen stood and hugged Lisa tightly. "This is because of you, Lisa. You've worked so hard to turn things around. I'm so proud of you." Lisa shook her head, overwhelmed by emotion. "It wasn't just me. Everyone played a part. The staff, you, Richard. We did this together." The news spread quickly throughout the hotel. Staff members gathered in the break room, celebrating with cheers and laughter. Some even popped open bottles of sparkling cider to toast the achievement. For the first time in weeks, the atmosphere felt lighter, filled with hope and excitement. Greg Leavitt arrived the following Monday to finalize the agreement. He met with Karen and Richard in their office, accompanied by several members of his team. The meeting lasted several hours, during which contracts were signed, handshakes exchanged, and plans outlined. By the end of the day, it was official. Greg's firm would invest in the Grand Horizon Hotel, providing the funding needed for expansion and modernization. As the group emerged from the office, Greg spotted Lisa standing nearby. He walked over to her, extending a hand. "Congratulations, Lisa. You've been instrumental in making this happen." Lisa accepted his handshake, still struggling to process everything. "Thank you, Mr. Leavitt. None of this would have been possible without your trust." Greg smiled warmly. "Call me Greg. And remember, none of this would have happened if you hadn't shown such dedication, even after that rocky start." His words brought a fresh wave of gratitude crashing over her. "I'll never forget this," she said sincerely. "Thank you for giving us a second chance." Over the next few months, the Grand Horizon Hotel underwent remarkable transformations. With the new investment, renovations were completed across the property, from updating guest rooms to expanding the spa facilities. The loyalty program Karen had proposed became a reality, attracting high-profile clients who appreciated the exclusivity it offered. Business boomed, and the hotel's reputation soared. Lisa thrived in her role as assistant manager, earning respect from both her colleagues and superiors. She continued to innovate, suggesting ideas that improved efficiency and enhanced guest experiences. Her promotion inspired others on the team to aim higher, fostering a culture of growth and collaboration. Karen and Richard couldn't have been prouder. At a celebratory dinner marking the completion of the renovations, Karen raised a glass to toast the staff. "To the Grand Horizon Hotel, and to all of you. This success belongs to everyone here. Together, we've proven that challenges can lead to opportunities, and mistakes can pave the way for greatness." As the room erupted in applause, Lisa glanced around at her co-workers, feeling a deep sense of belonging. She thought back to the day she'd canceled Greg's reservation, a mistake that had once seemed insurmountable. Now it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary, a reminder that resilience and teamwork could overcome even the toughest obstacles. Later that night, as Lisa left the hotel, she paused outside to gaze up at the building. Its lights shone brightly against the dark sky, a beacon of luxury and ambition. Somewhere inside, Greg Leavitt was enjoying a quiet evening in his suite, perhaps reflecting on the journey that had brought them all here. For Lisa, the experience had been life-changing. She had learned valuable lessons about responsibility, leadership, and the power of redemption. More importantly, she had discovered her own potential, proving to herself that she was capable of far more than she'd ever imagined. As she walked toward her car, Lisa smiled to herself. The Grand Horizon Hotel had given her a fresh start, and she intended to make the most of it. Whatever the future held, she was ready.